Thanks.
So now we'll be moving to the next talk. Please hold on. 1 second. Let me share my screen. We'll now be going to the next talk from Larry Macaulay, who will be taking us on enterprise DevSecOps, E2E process and tooling. And who is Larry Macaulay? Larry Macaulay is a global security risk and digital transformation leader. He is a community leader for the MCT Africa Security User Group. He has also worked in different places and is a well-known cybersecurity consultant. So, Mr. Larry Macaulay, you have the floor.
Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, I can hear you from there.
Okay, and also want to ensure that everyone can see me as well. Okay.
Sure.
How are we all doing? Okay. So I'm going to share my screen. Thank you so much, Mr. Tokwe, and we're going to make this as fast as possible, and then it's going to be short. So people just put your question together. So quickly, let me share my screen and let me know once you can see my screen. Just a moment. I want to believe everyone can see my screen right now.
Yes, I can see it from here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. So what I'm talking about today basically is we've had people talking about DevOps, right? Because organization, gone are the days that you have to wait for a software to be developed from beginning to the end before you move into the market, right? But we're now in the era whereby you need to get into the market, and that's what we call the word agile, right? Agility, because you need to get to the market right now. So instead of waiting for the entire software to be developed, which we used to call the waterfall model, software development lifecycle, right? You want to ensure right now, as you develop module by module, you are going into the market, right? So you're fast to get into the market, you're fast to be able to enhance and of course explore the profits in the market, all right, or to your customer or within the organization. But for you to be able to do that, there are a couple of things that must happen at the back end, and hence the culture of DevOps, right? So I'm not talking about DevOps today, right? I'm talking about the DevSecOps aspect, which is security, integrated security into DevOps, right? With that process, with that culture, from enterprise perspective. And of course, I'll give you a use case, right, of one of the major country here, right, that I'm doing something for right now in North America, right, in the US, and so major state, right? Let me say major state and country, right, right. And of course, I'll give a use case of what they are doing presently, right, from enterprise perspective, end to end, talking about the people, the process, and the tooling in place as well. And of course, you know that DevOps is a big deal today, right, from professional perspective. And I keep on telling people, I said, I mean, it's the fastest area that anybody can cross it into, as long as you have some development experience, some sort of, right? I'm talking about coding, right? And it doesn't have to be major coding experience, but it's something that you can actually just live by. So I'm going to be very fast a bit, right? So if you guys have any question, what we'll do is at the course of the session, maybe by the end of the session, I can take some of those questions. All right, so we're going to be looking at DevOps, DevSecOps, right? The governance, and also we'll look at the process as well. right? And then we look at the CICD. The low aspect is what? Continuous integration, right? And then the higher aspect is the continuous delivery. So that means as you are developing, as you are building, as you are integrating, you are releasing at the same time you are developing, you are delivering to the operation environment, right? So that's what we call the CICD. And of course, I'll give you a workflow of that process, how it looks like. And how would this be important to you? In 3 ways. The first way is if you work in an organization whereby you do a lot of software development, and right now you have DevOps in place, or maybe you don't have DevOps culture, but you have Azure DevOps, you're using Azure DevOps, or you're using GitOps, right? Or you're using Jira, or you're using IDE, right? Which is the development environment, basically. Now, if you're using any of those, you are doing DevOps in one way or the other, right? But the question is, how do you protect, right, across when the code is being developed, when the code is being built, released, and then it's going into live operation, right? So that becomes important, right? This discussion becomes important. The second one is if you're an individual and you're looking at one of the careers that you want to leverage, or you actually want to work outside the country. I always tell people, right? Maybe you live in Nigeria, you live in Africa, you live anywhere. And you say, hey, you know what? I need remote jobs. I want to do remote jobs and I want to be in Africa. DevOps is one of the key skill, right? DevOps, DevSecOps is one of the keys. Anybody can be anywhere and work remotely because they don't need you in any office, right? You have your tooling online, you can connect and you can do the things you need to do. So this session, right, is very important for those people as well. And the last one is individuals that are consultant and you're helping organization, right? And you offer services to them, technology services or all sorts of services. DevOps should be one of the things, right? DevSecOps should be one of the things you had to help them to be able to get to where they want to get to. So those are 3 people that this discussion is very important to. And as I said, you're free to ask me any sort of question. Is this the only thing that I do? No, right? It's security. But DevOps and DevSecOps has become one of the big area, right, where I deliver services, right, to top. And when I say top organization, I'm talking about organizations with thousands, right, or even not a million, right, of staff, right, all around the world. When I say a million, I'm talking about adjunct connection and things like that to that organization, which is always major all across the world, right? And so in that case, just to let you know that DevOps and DevSecOps is a global language, right? So let's look at it. We all know what DevOps is basically. Just what we're doing basically is the developers and the guys that are running the infrastructure, we're bringing them together. That's the layman definition, right? So you're developing within your IDE, right? And what do we do in those days? We're checking our code into Team Foundation server from Microsoft, right? Or GitOps. And other people too will check in theirs, right? And we can run the code. But the question is, the developers run the code, right? Just mainly alone. And that when they are done, then I say we want to go live. And that's where they call the infrastructure guys and say, hey, we're about to go live, guys. And then there's a run around. It's until when you get to live, when the application gets alive, that people start running around. The stress test was not done, regression testing was not done, a lot of performance issues and things like that. You know, there's a loophole, the interface has an issue, there's a run around. To prevent that from happening, the first module being developed, as it's being developed, as you're releasing it, the operation guys are testing and checking it to check the performance, to be sure everything is perfect and everything is okay, right? So it makes the whole work quite very easy, I'll say. And one way or the other, by the time it gets to the live environment, which of course, in a way is already in live environment, because remember, every organization will have a dev environment, they will have a QA, which is quality assurance, which is can call UAT, right? And then they have the prod. So the application must have been well tested in the dev before it gets to QA, and then it moves into prod, right? So that's the job of, what DevOps stand for. And DevSecOps basically is just that we've seen a lot of data breach. OWASP top 10, we all know, basically, right? One way or the other, either ransom here today, ransomware today, or secret injection tomorrow. There's different, or cross-site, scripting, or cross-site request forgery. There are different sort of attacks that we hear often, right? And then the concern you ask yourself is, are these softwares or applications not well tested before they go live or they went online? The hacking community right now is on the increase massively. I'm telling you, either anonymous or whichever you want to talk about it, individual script kiddies, they're all around on the internet, vesting on application and all that. So you want to be sure before you launch that website, before you launch that application, before you launch that enterprise application, everything is well tested and well covered. And that's where DevSecOps comes in, as I mentioned, right? So the key thing about DevSecOps, as you can see on my screen here, basically is, first thing is you want to ensure that security guys are within the loop of the whole thing from the beginning, right? So as you are developing and you're releasing, the security guys are testing in the pipeline. They're testing and ensuring that the security of the entire system is well secure and well protected. And that is very important, right? The next one is you are shifting to the left. Shifting to the left means that immediately there's a flaw within the application at the code level, right? Either at the code level or at the operation level, you want to ensure that that is well secure on time, right? So as you are finding the issue, you're fixing it immediately, right? That's very important. The third one is you enable testing, different types of testing, SaaS, DaaS, right? Operational testing, you want to ensure that the software or the release or the module is well tested before they went live, right? And the next thing is you want to monitor as you are releasing to the live environment, you want to monitor those modules. So continuous security, right? Increase efficiency and product quality from the operation team or infrastructure guys. You want to get feedbacks from them and ensure that you put that within the application you're working on. Then you want to enhance compliance. So whether you're looking at CIS or you're looking at PCI DSS, you're looking at any of the compliance standard out there, the key thing for you is you want to ensure that you are developing the application, you are using library. Those libraries, open source libraries, are well used, right? So that you don't fall into compliance issue. Your APIs, right, are well defined. You have API management in place. You just want to ensure that compliance perspective, everything is well checked, right? So from the dev to the ops, right, compliance, right, is being well covered. And the last one is increased collaboration between the developers and the operation guys or the infrastructure guys, right, before the application go live. Okay, so if you have questions, just type your questions in the chat session, right? And any kind of question, no question is actually dumb, right? Because I ask dumb questions a lot of time, right? And that make me to learn more, to know more, right? So any question you have, definitely I will take them at the course or the end of the session. Okay, quickly. So moving on. So let's look at, so if you're setting up DevSecOps within the organization, right? These are things that are very key, right? I'm not going to talk too much on this, right? Because the slide will be shared by Mr. Topway, and then you can possibly read through, right? So when you're setting up DevSecOps, because we know DevOps comes with CICD Pipeline, and if you're listening to me right now, so CICD Pipeline, what is all about that? Now remember, as I said, the developers are developing the application. When they develop the application, they need to release the application. And when they release the application, the applications will go into dev, into UAT, user acceptance testing environment, or quality assurance QA, and then it goes into production. Now, before it goes into this environment, right, you want to ensure that the developers, as they are developing, the other people, the operation and infrastructure guys have an idea what's going on in development. So the pipeline that controls how these applications are coming in and moving from one point to another is what we call the CICD pipeline. Where the developers are working on the application, it's called a continuous integration. So they're building and they're releasing, they're building, they're releasing. Now, when they release, tests will happen. After those tests are being done, right, the application will now move into either dev, QA, and prod. That place is moving to dev, QA, and what I'm telling you right now, I have a diagram to show you guys, right? When it moves into that dev or prod, that's what we call the continuous work delivery. So that's what we call the CICD. Layman understanding, it's not difficult at all, right? Okay, so if I'm setting up a CICD, as you can see on your screen, there's a governance I must have in place. In terms of the roles and responsibilities of the people that must be involved, right? We talk about developers, the security guys, the infrastructure, the operation guys. Everyone must be in the mix of things. The next one is you must have established policies and procedures, right? So if you have a documented policy, right, of DevSecOps, how do you want to run your DevSecOps, right? What kind of process do you want to have on your DevSecOps? That has to be in place. And then those policies, some of them you might have to effect them. Azure DevOps, for instance, there are policies you can use to control the org, right? So, but that's from technical perspective. The next one is then you must have automated security enabled. And of course, you must have heard about different, Sonar cubes, check marks, GitLab, Zap. Those are different SaaS, DAST applications. So you can have all those integrated within the CICD pipeline to be able to test, right? And of course, you want to ensure automated audit evidence collection. What that means is you have logs of the DevSecOps, right? Whatever test is being done, whatever check-ins, whatever filling, if any fail happen in the pipeline, you want to have those logs in place so that you can use it for forensics if needed. And the last one is, because we said as the CI is going on, CD is going on as well. You want to monitor your CD, overview of whatever is going on in your CD from performance perspective or security perspective, or there's any issue as regards to what you're releasing in the QA, in the dev and the prod environment, right? Good. Okay, so just take a look at this, right? From enterprise perspective, from governance perspective, this is what the end-to-end looks like. Does every organization need to follow this word for word? No. But I'll tell you, every organization picks something from this, right? So if you're a DevOps or you are joining an organization or you want to learn DevOps, if you join any organization, first thing we ask you is, hey, what should our process look like? You have to figure out how the process look like from what we have here. If you look at the color legend, right, you see blue, security automation. The gray is the embedded security process. Then green is DevOps. Now, DevOps has been before DevSecOps. I mentioned that earlier on, right? So if you look at the first part, ideate, that's a DevOps culture, right? So during ideation, what happened in DevOps, right? We have portfolio management of application we're thinking about, right? We have epics, we have requirement of what we're thinking, and this is still on paper, basically, right? And then we have collaboration and work tracking and Slack. People use Slack, people use, Jira, people use, Teams for collaboration and tracking, right? You might even have a whiteboard, room where you guys just, brainstorm and come together, right? Then application lifecycle management, your organization, how do you control application lifecycle? These are all DevOps related, so I'm not going to talk much about that, right? So how do you control from dev, from UAT, QA, and then prod as well, right? And then if you look at it from security process perspective, you want to, do the architecture and the design of the application. And developers, they know what I'm talking about, right? So you want to do, whether it's object-oriented, right? You want to do the wireframing of the application, how the structure of the application is going to be like, right? What the modules is going to be like, what are the epics? What kind of functional requirement do you need to actually focus on against the non-functional requirement? By the way, functional requirements are the key, functions you want to address in the application. Non-functional, other, requirements that are not key, right? But they are important. Security, for instance, is a non-functional requirement, but it's very important as well. Okay, so now under that, if you look at it from security automation, we do threat modeling. Why do we do threat modeling? You want to know what sort of threats is your application susceptible to that can happen to your application, right? Can people, if I put out this application, for instance, and my database parameterization is not well done within the application. I have credentials within the application, right? People can query the application from the interface. And voila, what can happen? SQL injection. And we all know SQL injection is one of the top 10 OWASP recommendation, right? So you want to do threat modeling. Now, in those days, we used to do threat modeling by process, right? Or we use meter attack process. Or we use those sort of process-based we used to even use key chain to do threat modeling. But right now, we now have tools, right? We have tools that can do threat modeling easily. We know SD Element, fantastic tool, right, for threat modeling. Microsoft also have threat modeling tool as well, which I use very well sometimes, right? If it's going to be a .NET application, right? So they have different threat modeling tools, and they will bring out the threats that are applicable to the application. And from there, we set up the source control. We have source control, then we do code review. Gone are those days we used to do code review, right, manually, okay? But now, hey, code review can be done automatically, and that's what led to the SAST, what we call the SAST, right, which is secure application security testing, right? Or source code application security testing, right? So SAST what it does is to be able to test the application at the code level. Are your variable well done, right? Do you parameterize your variable? Do you validate your variable, right? When you call your modules or you call objects or you reuse objects, right? How secure your API libraries when you call them? All those are what? Source code level testing. You validate them. Now, remember I said before that you're going to set up your source control. When you set up your source control, you must scan that base, because source control, for instance, can be attacked. All right, a ransomware or a malware can enter a source control. And imagine the source control is where your code base is. So when that is attacked, what happens to the entire pipeline? There's a lot of issue. So first thing is you want to scan your code. Tools like Snyk, we all know Snyk, right? You can use Snyk to scan your source code, right? Tools like I think Checkmaster have a RASP-D now, right? For also scanning. For scanning a repository, basically. So when you set up your source control, you want to ensure that it's a proper scan of that. And from there, you move to repository scan. I mentioned that earlier on. Build manager is always available, whether you're using Azure DevOps, GitLab, or any of the, or Bitbucket, right? Any of the platform you're using. You always have the build manager there, because what the build manager does is helps you to actually build the micro releases, right? As it go into major releases, into each of the environment we discussed about. That you want to do your testing, quality management, artifacts, repository, those are DevOps related. Now, if you look at under trigger testing, in the CICD pipeline, at every location in the CI part, you have your SAS, source code testing. And in your CD part, you have your what? Dynamic testing. What's different? The source code testing is testing the binary, testing the source code, testing the variable, right? But not in an executable format. It's at the code level. Why the dynamic application testing is testing when the application begins to run, sort of, right? It executes the modules, all right? Combine into binary and test them to see what is going to happen when the application is in the executable mode, right? So please take note of that, executable mode, right? Dynamic application testing is in the CD aspect. Then performance testing, then of course pen testing comes in once the application, right? It's in a mode whereby you have it as a release. You can pen test. Why are you pen testing? Pen testing means you are getting into the offensive mode, right? To validate all those threat modeling you saw initially, right? Can those threat modeling be attacked or be exploitable? If they can be exploitable, to what extent? You need to validate those that's true penetration testing, right? And then the next one is go or no go. Go or no go is if you test an application in the pipeline, do you want it to go into live environment? There must be a gates threshold. We call it gates threshold. And it's not a big deal. So gate threshold basically, you know, we used to have CVVSS core. So if you have CVVS core, for instance, and you're using that, take for instance, CVVS 3.1, and you now say that if this testing failed in the pipeline and the CVVS score is 9, right? That this should not go into dev, QA, or prod. That's all called approval for release into production, right? And then anyone you release into production is either dev, QA, or prod. You want to ensure continuous monitoring, logging, continuous feedback, and metrics collection as well. So, hey, end to end. If you look at the 4.5 on the base, continuous vulnerability scanning, I mentioned that, right? Across the entire pipeline, from CI to CD, you want to check for threats. You want to check for vulnerability. Can people attack your pipeline? Oh, yes, it's possible. So you want to check for vulnerability on your pipeline as the release is passing through from CI to CD, from lower environment to higher environment, right? And then I've already mentioned before the third-party component scanning. Why? So remember we have Kubernetes, right? And then you can spawn up, right? Containers, and you have VMs, which is pods, right? Within those containers. And at every point in time, you can destroy automatically, you can bring them up. And those containers or VMs, they have base images, Linux-based images. And those Linux-based images, for instance, they are distros. So those distros, they get automated, updated automatically when they're coming up in the CI, right? And when they are running in the CD. So you want to ensure that you have automated scanning, update, control. So during updates, if a threat comes up during updates, you want to scan those to know whatever those issues are and fix them immediately. And that's where you have the 5 at the base. And that's the continuous third-party component scanning, right? To be able to control that part. And also, security of DevSecOps pipeline is implemented using identity and access management. We'll talk about it, right? If it's Azure DevOps, you're using Azure AD. Whatever platform you're using, there's going to be some sort of identity and access management in place, right? I'm going to be running up soon. So let's look at a use case. So this is a use case right now that I've used for an organization, right? Now, they don't want to follow Microsoft, right, or any of the key technology, one shop fits all kind of thing, right? So if you look at the process I show you here is what I actually implemented here. The difference is this is a process to present to the organization, but here I'm implementing, right? I'm implementing the process, I'm implementing the tools end to end, right? This as I'm talking to you right now is about 85% go live, done. And across different countries, across different teams, they are making use of different parts of these tools. So let's look at it from the right-hand side. So what CIC tool are they using for DevOps? It's GitLab, right? Remember I mentioned before that you must have once you set up the repository part of it, you must ensure that you'll be able to test from the CI and from the CD as well. So they are using the repository scan, which is I mentioned to you before here, source control, right, parts. The repository scan, they use Snyk. I mentioned Snyk earlier on. And then you want to do the dynamic testing. You want to do the SAS testing. Here, for dynamic testing, we're using what? Sorry, for source code testing, which of course I mentioned earlier here, right? Source code testing, we're making use of the Fortify, right? And then if I move from, so 1, 2, if you move to 3 here, I say define pass-fail control gate based on security vulnerability score threshold. Remember I said before here that number 4, we are scanning the entire pipeline. Once we see any issue, the pipeline can fail, right? Or the security team needs to fix that immediately. So here, there's a pass and fail control in the pipeline to control if there's a failure, and that failure needs to be fixed immediately, right? The 4th one is on application threat model, and I mentioned SD element before. What are those threats? The question you're going to ask me is, you need to define the pass and fail control before the threat modeling. Yes. The pass and fail control has nothing to do with your threat. It's your thresholds. And as I said before, threshold can be CVSS. You can define that in the pipeline directly, right? Before you do your threat modeling. Now, threat modeling is what are those threats that the security team needs to pay attention for this specific application from the perspective of data, application, infrastructure, API, open source libraries, all those things, right? You want to control. And those ones, you want to know what are the threats available from OWASP perspective or Stride or other frameworks out there, and compliance you're following as well, right? Now, from the 3, application modeling, 4, then move to 5, run static code analysis. I mentioned before, we're using Fortify to do that, right? And that must happen from your continuous integration. Remember, I said the lower environment is continuous integration. The upper environment is what? Continuous delivery. Source code testing happens at the lower environment, okay? And that is continuous what? Integration, where the developers build and integrate the application model, okay? And then we move from there to 6, execute automated dependency scan on Docker images, right? So what I mean by that is, hey, at the lower environment, if you're using AKS, for instance, those VMs needs to be created. And that's what we call pods, for those people that know Kubernetes very well, or containerization. Those pods within the clusters, that they are being created, there are base images for creating them. And this are called distros. There could be Linux distros, Debians and all that, right? Or Ubuntu. When those VMs comes up, those VMs could have threats within them. You want to scan and ensure that whatever comes up within those clusters are well protected. And that's where we have the dependency scan on Docker images and all that, right? To ensure they have been scanned possibly. And I mentioned before, Snyk is good for that as well. And from there, we move to what? Continuous vulnerability scanning of the infrastructure as code scripts, if you have. So nowadays, as you are developing the code, the infrastructure to run the code, thanks to Terraform, right? Terraform ARM template from Azure and all that, right? You can actually deploy also the code and infrastructure as well immediately. So as you are developing the code and they're going into QA dev or prod, the infrastructure as code as well can follow through, right? So in that case, you want to scan those ARM templates, those Terraform scripts. You want to scan them and be sure that Whatever goes on to the dev or prod or QA environment is well protected. And then we move from there, we move to perform dynamic application I mentioned before. Remember, source code testing at the lower environment, continuous integration, right? And then the dynamic, which is DAST, dynamic application testing, when the application is in the executable form, you want to test them. That happens, what? At the what? Continuous delivery. Remember, source code testing at the lower level, continuous integration, right? DAST, dynamic application security testing, happen at the upper level, which is the continuous what? Delivery, okay? And that's what we see perform dynamic application security testing. From there, conduct pen tests. I'll tell you the truth. Why do I have to use DAST, right? When I can pen test. When you do DAST, it reduces the number of penetration testing you need to carry out. And then again, it's more focused. From your DAST, you could see where the threats are. So your pen test, you just want to what? Validate what those are, basically. I mean, I've done this several projects, basically, right? Take, for instance, you out of your DAST, the DAST was complaining of a particular API library, right? Was wrongly being used. That gives you what to test in your penetration testing. So you're just going to pick the API library, right? And you're going to carry out using different tools, right? Maybe you're using Kali Linux or any of the tools, Studio for pen testing, basically. You want to validate whatever that issue is, and then that will let you know, okay, there are threats. How far can this be exploitable, right? What can I do to what? To mitigate whatever that threat is, right? And from there, you move to 10. Remember I said before, once a release goes into dev, QA, UAT, or prod environment, you want to monitor them immediately to see if there's any threat that is coming up. If you are using Azure DevOps, security center is there to monitor immediately whatever is going on, which is of course Microsoft Defender right now. It used to be Azure Defender, but Microsoft Defender. You want to monitor whatever that issue is. If you're on GitLab, definitely you have the monitor component. If you're using a Docker image, you can have one of the VM spawner for Lightbend or Grafana to monitor those components for you, basically, right? So whatever infrastructure you're using, you can monitor those that as well, right? And then the 11 is every issue you found, you must create a ticket in Jira or ServiceNow, and hence number 11 here. So the issues, you are finding them, right? You are creating them in Jira. As you're putting them in Jira, you are assigning them to team members to resolve those issues, and they're resolving them. You're commenting on those tickets. Oh, this has been resolved. There's an issue with this. The team is working collaboratively. For every issue found, they're resolving them immediately, right? And then the last one is what? Continuous feedback and metrics. Of course, you can get that from, if you're using Azure DevOps, the Azure DevOps metrics will let you know how many tickets been found, how many issues been found, how many has been resolved, how many pipeline break, the reason for the pipeline break, all right, how that needs to be resolved, right? Activities that are pending, what is pending in the pipeline, those are metrics to check end to end what is going on in the DevSecOps, basically. So you can see right now the process here is what we brought to life here from implementation perspective, right? And so, as I said, first one, organization wants to explore this further, right? Hey, you can reach out to me, basically. I can give you some guidance on what you need to do from perspective of implementation, right? If you're an individual and you're looking at, hey, I think I like this DevOps or DevSecOps area, and I want to make it something I want to go into professionally, you can reach out to me as well. I can give you guidance. And as I said, you can be at home, you can be anywhere, you can be in Nigeria, and you can work for a company in the US. Because DevOps, guys, the skill is very scarce, right? Because the problem is the developers, every organization expects that if you're a developer, you should know DevOps, but was not the case. So what organizations are now doing now is they're looking for DevOps guys to be able to coordinate the activities of the developers, right? So if you are looking at remote jobs, I always advise people, one of the areas to look at first is into DevOps or DevSecOps, basically, right? And the last one, you want to implement this within your organization to sort of improve the culture of software development within your organization. I think this should be something that you want to think about as well. So I'm going to be running up right now. So guys, if you have any question, you can ask me. I can also provide my LinkedIn handle on the chat, and also my Instagram handle on the chat as well. So if you want to send me a mail, I'll put my email on the chat as well, and those details you guys can get that. So if you have any question right now, guys, you can quickly just ask me. Over to you, Mr. Topper.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you very much, Mr. Larry. What a fantastic talk from you. We truly enjoyed you. And I don't know, does anybody have a question for Mr. Larry before he leaves? If you have any question, please, you can unmute yourself or you can type it. Someone just said, good presenter, Mr. Larry. That's an accolade. Any question for Mr. Larry before he leaves? I've actually enjoyed this CICD part, in which from my own side, I actually make use of Sonar Cloud, Sonar Q for my DevSecOps, and is really helping out. Okay, someone is asking a question. How would you describe the learning curve for DevSecOps?
Okay, so so first thing you have to do is, the learning curve is not difficult, right? But I always advise go to LinkedIn or go to Udemy and look for a basic training on software development lifecycle, SDLC, right? If you are very serious, if you are focused, when I say focused, means that I will do this thing by 3 p.m. and you do it by 3 p.m. I give you within two months. You should be strong on DevOps and DevSecOps. You should be strong, what I mean. But as I said, hear my word, you are disciplined, you are focused, right? Within 2 months. People that I've seen in the past, most of the guys I've advised. I'll give you a practical example. This is a practical example. So I advised someone that, hey, you know what? The person was actually into, who are these people that, okay, that help people to sell, they sell products. They call them, should I call them promotional professionals? They just promote people's products, basically, right? And he asked me, you know, he said, I in school, I did some things related to software and all that, but this DevOps, I've been hearing about it and I would love to go into it. And I said, you know what, buy a course on Udemy, buy a course on this. And then I told him, you know what, give yourself 2 or 3 months, focused on this, right? And I recommended to him different tools and all that for him to play with, right? Play with Kubernetes, play with, you know, GitOps and things like that, right? And it took him about 4 months or to 5 months, and I think so, right? And as I'm talking to you right now, he's working with IBM as a DevOps engineer. And you don't want me to start saying, oh, how much is he collecting or anything, but just visualize, right? Between $150 US, right? And above, just visualize that. That's what he's earning right now. And this is somebody that is not even a tech, basically. I'm just giving you that as an example to let you know, right? How easy, if you are serious about this, basically, okay? Hope that answered the question.
Yes, you did. You answered the question. Thank you very much. That's an interesting example you gave.
Yes, sir. And then I'm putting my email on the
There's one other question. Yes. Someone is saying most documentations only explain security vulnerabilities, but they don't explain how to solve it. How does one get materials that address security vulnerabilities, especially in .NET Core?
Okay, fantastic, and thanks for that. Right. So I'll say this: when it comes to security vulnerabilities, you should have specific repository that you make use of, right? And they are all different. There are different of them online, basically. Most of us must have seen CVVS database, right? CVVS database. You can check that out. CVVS database, which is good, right? Meter attack as well is good. Okay. You can check meter attack database as well. Now, let me explain. So whenever you see any issue, first thing you do is you can go to any of those repositories. We call them vulnerability database. They're available online. If they have been found before, then you'll be able to know what score was assigned to them, the details, how to remediate them, basically. But trust me, if you're using a SAST, like, you know, Fortify, or a DAST, like, you know, GitLab, Zap, those tools within themselves, they'll give you details of the issue and they'll tell you how to fix it. If it is 0 day, then you need to talk to a security person. Maybe you need to talk to someone like me. So, and I can look at what the issue is and all that, and I can advise based on experience. Or we can take up if it's a malware, we can take it up and do reverse engineering, break it down and see whatever issue is. Guys, I've been long in security, probably before DevSecOps, right? So when I see a lot of issues sometimes, right, if it's a 0 day or something, I'm going to wear my cap of security, right? And I get into my offensive mode. Okay? Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I hope so. That was a fantastic part, and we surely appreciate you, Mr. Larry Macaulay. Even though it's very early at your end there, but you still strive,
guys.
you still strive to be in our midst this morning. We truly appreciate that, and we also know that you still have some other part in some other events later today. So we truly appreciate giving out your time for the community, and we hope that when we call you some other time, you will surely answer us. So, Mr. Larry, you can follow him. I think he has dropped his email and some other things. Yeah. So, thank you very much, Mr. Larry. We truly appreciate your coming for our event this morning. So enjoy your day.
Thanks for having me as well.
Enjoy your day. Thank you very much.
All right. Bye, guys. Thank you so much.